The Church of Rock.
For both, have a little look at, have a little gander.
Have a little look-see.
Okay, so welcome to the Rumble podcast, Mr. Moody, the Reverend Derek Moody, Bloody F Mess, man of many names.
Yes, sometimes I feel a bit schizophrenic.
My first sort of question is, obviously you're raised in Illinois, Peoria, is that right?
Yes, about 2.5 hours south of Chicago.
I believe I visited there. There's another big sort of settlement called Springfield, I remember laughing about that.
Yes, I played many shows in Springfield.
Yeah, back in the day, what was like the music scene there then when you were sort of coming up?
Well, back in the day in Illinois, it was a lot of rednecks, a lot of tough guys, you know, and they don't like guys that are into rock and roll so much unless they look like them. But I was the first guy to sport a mohawk haircut back in 1984, 85. So everywhere I went, it was like, hey, faggot, or hey, does your mama know you dress that way? And, you know, so lots of fights, which I usually didn't lose. But you know, it was a real redneck place. And I liked being the guy that stood out and to be one of the first punk pioneers there of a handful of people. With that haircut, boy, did I learn a lot about human mentality, you know, and judgmental people and things, you know.
Of course, yeah. And sort of from there, did you start a band in Chicago or did you move out of the area, you know?
Well, most of my life, everyone said, you should go to LA or New York because you're so eccentric, you'd fit in there. I said, problem is everyone there is eccentric and crazy, and I would just blend in. So I decided to stay where I stood out more. And in Peoria, I was on the front page of many, many, many newspapers for outlandish behaviors, breaking rules, getting arrested, whatnot. I stayed there pretty much most of my life until about 1987. I moved to Boulder, Colorado area for about 6 months, and then I came back to Peoria, stayed there until about 10 years ago.
Is the Wayne's World film accurate to what Chicago was like at the time?
Pretty much, yeah. It was a great place, still is. Great city. If you're into cities, it's a great one. The music scene has always been super thick, lots of bands, but it's very jaded as well. So if you play in Chicago and if you don't have a big following, you'll have like 5 people there, you know? So it's tough.
I think of Chicago and I think of some of the current bands of maybe 10 years ago. I remember a good one called Mickey. Are you familiar with them?
I've heard of them.
They were doing sort of a glam thing, which is coming up big now, but they were doing it like 10 years ago, and it's really cool. I'll send you something of theirs. There'll be a link up there.
I like glam rock.
So I listened to your radio show, the spiritual one. That was an interesting listen and sort of hearing sort of what was going on in the community that you're in. How did you sort of get into the radio game?
Well, back in my entire life, I wanted to be a DJ. And when I was a little kid, I would go in my room, shut the door, put on the black lights and the strobe lights and put a record on and pretend like I was the DJ. And my mom, you know, told me, she said, you wanted to do this your whole life, you know, and I'd forgotten that. I forgot that I used to do that. But she did remind me before she died that you always wanted to be a DJ. So congratulations, you did what you wanted to do. And I got into radio because I moved in to a house and the landlord turned out to be the general manager of the biggest radio station in town. And he was also like my DJ idol when I was a kid. He was like my favorite radio DJ. So it was meant to be, man. It's like I manifested that shit with my own just constantly thinking of it. And as a child and then as a rocker later, what are the odds that Wayne R. Miller, general manager of Rock 106, is my landlord all of a sudden? And it took me 6 months to figure it out because I dealt with his wife, who was one of those ladies that kept her own last name. So I didn't know until one day she kept saying Wayne, the station, Wayne, the radio station. I'm like, who's Wayne and what radio station? And she's like, my husband's like the big guy at Rock 106. And I told her my dream. She goes, don't worry, you'll be on the radio soon. And I was.
That's very cool.
She liked me.
So going from the late 80s when you moved to Colorado, what was sort of the first band you formed from there?
Well, when I went to Colorado in 87, I opened up a show for Naked Raygun, caused a ton of trouble in Illinois, made the papers, and then I split and I retired from punk rock for the first time out of like 10. And I thought I was done. So I go to Colorado and decide to start a band like, kind of like Navi Clark did in the Bay City Rollers. He's going to quit the Rollers and become like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Like what? I thought I would just be like Neil Young for a minute because I like everything in it. But I'm a rocker. I was born that way. It's on my back. Born a rocker, die a rocker. UK subs. But I tried, and I had an acoustic band of singing guys doing acoustic. And then one night, after 3 months of being there, I have a party at my house. I've never told this story. And I have all these Grateful Dead heads and hippies there. And they're all mellow, chill. We're smoking weed and watching the Grateful Dead movie, I remember. And I got drunk. And I'm an ex-alcoholic. And when I drink, I'm like Keith Moon. Say no more. So all of a sudden, I decided I hated hippies, wanted to get out of that scene and get right back into punk rock. And I started telling them how much I thought the Grateful Dead should die and like, fuck hippies, that I'm done with this shit, get out of my house. And I literally went back to Illinois and decided to start the most notorious band I could possibly think of. And after using some names that I won't even mention here because they're like just not cool, politically correct, I decided with Bloody Mess and the Scabs, and I met a group of guys, and we started and decided to be the most, notorious nihilistic band we could be, and it wasn't fake. Everybody was we hated this everything. So the first Scabs record has 5 songs: Ugly Friends, Cigarette on the Clit, Biker Punks from Hell, Lawless for Love, and we pissed off everybody.
I think my first introduction to your band would have been researching the G.G. Allen stuff on like the support slots for them. How did that come about?
Well, back to the nihilist thing. In 1983 or so, I met a band, and they were brothers, bass, guitar, drummer, the Steppy Brothers, and they put an ad up at the local record store looking for a punk rock singer, and I was just dying to be a punk rock singer, although I never had done that. And so they said, I said, I nicknamed my friend called me Bloody Mess from the Sex Pistols song Bodies. I thought, the Germs have Darby Crash, the Sex Pistols have Sid Vicious. Who am I? And there's a line in Bodies that goes, fucking Bloody Mess. And he's like, what's your name? I go, I can't be fucking. How about Bloody fucking Mess? And he goes, yeah, and we'll make it proper and we'll just shorten it to Bloody F Mess so you're a gentleman. And so I kept the name, and it stuck for like 38 years. But I decided to write to G.G. Allen because I saw his record in a collection of my guitar player at the time, Barry Steppy, and G.G. Allen and the Scumfucks. And I'm like, are these guys for real? And they're like, oh yeah, they're like the most hated band in the country. Everybody hates this guy. I go, God, I like him already. And so I wrote him a letter, and he wrote back like a week later. And we started a friendship that lasted until 1990, man. He called me his twin brother. We were like this, although we were totally opposites. Like, I didn't do the stuff he did on stage. I didn't even think a lot of it was cool, but a lot of it was cool. And I just kind of stayed myself and let Gigi be him, and he let me be me. And he would come to my town and stay at my house, and we'd write songs together and drink, and we had girlfriends together. We toured together. We passed out together. I got arrested but he didn't one time. I went to jail and he didn't. But it was a good friendship until the G.G. Allen mission. Once he started that whole mission thing, I was like, I'm out. You're nuts now, bro. You're literally crossed the line into crazy insanity. Like, no one's real if they use fake blood. Like, what about Alice Cooper, man? We love Alice Cooper. He loved Alice Cooper. What about the Plasmatics? All of a sudden, he hated all them. I'm like, come on, G. We talked about this before. These are the real rockers. But he was like, no, they're pussies. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to love you from a distance from now on, man. I've got to be myself, and I can't follow you like some fucking Manson follower. I'm a leader, not a follower. I've never been a follower. And unfortunately, most people that associate me these days that don't know me or took the time to listen to my music and my career will tell you, oh, he was just a GG wannabe or a follower. Couldn't be any further from the fucking truth, man. There was times I took Gigi and threw him down flights of stairs, man. Like, I would never follow G.G. Allen or anybody else. I thought he was genius, and I liked him. I liked his nihilism and that he was real, That's it,
When you were just sort of playing the show and you were opening up for him, like, what was kind of the vibe you were feeling in the venue as the night kind of progressed, beforehand and after?
Well, the first show was July 31st, 1985. He came to my town on a bus with a cassette tape. No band, and I had a local straight edge band opened the show July 31st, 1985. That would be funny to have a straight edge band on the bill.
Of course.
And then I put band second, Bloody Mess and Hate. And of course, it was a crazy live act. And then Gigi was the headline. Well, everything went according to plan. And while we were on stage, there was about, there's debate. People argue about how many people were there. There was a minimum of 100 people, but there's probably about 150, maybe 120. And I was the promoter of the event and I played there. So I do remember that there was at least 100 people. Gigi proceeded to walk through the audience and yell at me the entire time I was on stage, "Take your pants off!" Or "Fuck you." It was great. And but you can find that recording on YouTube now. It's Bloody Mess and Hate, July 31st, 1985, Creve Coeur, Illinois. And if you look for that on the Church of Rock YouTube, you'll hear Gigi in the audience yelling the whole time.
There'll be a link. We'll put a link up there.
No one really knows about that, really. It's just been up on like a year, maybe.
Okay, so sort of coming through that, like coming into the 90s, what were you sort of doing with yourself at that point?
In the 90s, I was fronting the Scabs went to New York City, went on a U.S. tour, 1994, Hungover and Stoned. We lasted maybe 5 states. And I basically broke up the band in the middle of the show in Wilmington, Delaware. I got 3 songs in and I was like, fuck you people, because someone's like, hey, fuck you faggot, or fucking Mick Jagger wannabe or something, because I was wearing tights or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I fucking hate this fucking town. Fuck Wilmington, Delaware. I'm out. I quit and I fucking quit this band. Take me home. And they're like, are you serious? I go, yeah. They're like, we've got more states. I go, I don't give a fuck. I'm done. And I just snapped out, dude, after 8 years of the Scabs and all the abuse. And it was just really hardcore life. And, you know, I just quit. And they took me 17 hours home and dropped me off. And I didn't see those guys for years. And I immediately started a country band called the Country Trash Punks. We did a record. And now I actually like that record. It's on YouTube as well. And I used to hate it, but I love it now. And then I'd started a band called the Renegades in 95. And we did maybe 80 shows in about a year and a half. We did 4 sets a night, 3 shows a week, nothing but honky tonks, redneck bars and dives. I changed my name back to my illegal name, didn't tell anyone in the punk scene, no one knew. And I just did this whole new career. It was all outlaw country, David Allan Coe, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, you know, all the good guys. And I learned how to sing properly, which I should have done before I did the record.
Yeah.
But I did learn how to sing like harmony and stuff. And then that band, one day I snapped again and I'm like, fuck it, I can't handle this country. I gotta rock. Let's just start a rock and roll bubblegum tribute band. And we'll just do songs that are bubblegum pop rock with a lot of songs that were sung by females only. And so we were doing like Joan Blondie, Dusty Springfield, you know, all these cool people, you know. And we were doing Saturday Night by the Bay City Rollers, T-Rex, David Bowie, Rebel Rebel. It was a good band. One day I snapped again and I go, I can't do another cover song. I must do originals. And we totally morphed into this band that was my favorite band ever, Bloody in the Veins. And we started opening for Nazareth, and we were opening for Cheap Trick and all these great rock bands. And I highly suggest, out of my 9 full-length albums, to get Bloody in the Veins. It's one of the top 2 best things I've ever done in my career, without a doubt. That band started in 99 and we broke, or 97 or 98, and broke up in like 2000.
Okay, we'll have a look at that. I think another interesting sort of thing to look at from like the period that you was making music is like you went from this transition from analog to digital and the introduction of CDs. Do you remember that and what sort of the feel was around it?
It was a bummer because all of a sudden my big, you know, like your what's the word? You're like your drawing board for doing artwork, or your what's the word? Became like this big, you know. You used to have
your canvas.
You could design album covers. It was so fun, and now you had no space. You had a booklet, you know. But we quickly adapted to the idea of that you could still have, you know, your lyrics put in the booklet and things like that. But I'm a big proponent of vinyl. That was a bummer.
So also, I was speaking to you last week, and you were saying you're working on some new material with some members of the Bay City Rollers. How's that going about?
It's actually going about quite quickly. Shout out to Pat McGlynn and his lovely wife, Janine Andrews. They actually sent me and Tracy, my wife, a song via email. So I wake up and he's like, D, check your email. So I checked my email. He's like, we wrote a song, mixed it, produced it, recorded it in 3 hours. It's just a rough mix, but it's for you and it's for Reverend Moody and Sister Tracy. It's called Tonight I Pray. And I'm like, I get it. I know what you're doing. This is good. And it was good. It's a really great tune, unlike anything I've ever done before, but it's really good. And I've already got Mark Thomas Johnson, who's an ex-member of the Jefferson Starship, doing the drum parts. I've got Ariana Danielle, who made it to round 3 of the television show The Voice in the States recently, who's also my keyboard player of Divine Dirt, my band, and David Valley, my bass player of bass and guitar parts, and my wife and I are doing vocals.
So tell me about your work with Gary Floyd.
Gary Floyd is a very special person. We have a very spiritual connection through Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. And we have a writing project going on. And Gary and I are trading these fantastic lyrics. Well, on his end, they're fantastic. And our intention is going to be to release a 2-song colored vinyl limited edition 7-inch record, I believe. And I am so excited about working with Gary, man. He's like one of the best, one of my heroes.
Tell me a bit about your introduction to working with Gary and your first projects.
Well, as a young punker, I was into the Dicks. They were just such a great revolutionary punk band here in the States. In 1980, Gary was an openly gay singer from Texas that was, but also a badass. You wouldn't want to make fun of him in his face. So I always respected that. I wasn't gay, but I sure loved that guy's lyrics and his conviction and passion, And boy, his vocals are incredible. So when he got into the Sister Double Happiness and kind of morphed from punk to legit rock and R&B and things like that, and blues rock, and spiritual music, I was like, wow, this guy's even more of a hero. And then through social media, like you and I, we just met. And one day I said, look, I'd love to do a project with you. And he was like immediately open to it. And it's just been working out like crazy. He's in charge with doing the editing. So once it's all done, he'll let me know and we'll start recording.
So any new people that are watching you, what can they find you on, and what can they follow you on?
I'm easy to find. You can find me on Facebook personally under the name Buddy, Buddy, F-Mess, or you can just go to my music page on Facebook, which is Bloody F-Mess. I also have a Divine Dirt page for my band. I have the Church of Rock radio show and Earth Heart radio show. Earth Heart with 1 H in the middle between Earth and Heart.
Okay, well that's brilliant. I think that's a great introduction to some of the stuff that you're involved with, and thanks for coming and speaking to us, Derek, and we'd love to have you another time.
I'd love to do it anytime. I'm really honored, man, and hope to see you on that side of the pond in 2021. When I get my vaccination, I'm heading over to Edinburgh, and I'll stop by.
That'll be good.
Yeah, I've got some friends in England now, so you're on that list.
All right, nice one. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.